Welcome to MezFi Meets. This is episode 4 with Fletcher Roberts and Jock Haslam from Hashlock. Guys, how are you today?
Not too bad. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
Jock, Fletcher and I met because they have done the smart contract auditing for MezFi. We were, funnily enough, Jock and I met on a boat cruise in Brisbane, totally randomly. I think I was having a cigar and so was he. And then found out that they were most likely to be the people who are going to be doing our smart contract audit, which was a pleasant surprise and a pleasant what shall we call it, coincidence. But we had a great time that night, and I've enjoyed all of the work that we've done so far as well. So why don't you guys give a bit of a brief introduction to Hashlock and how you guys met, maybe, and how all of this came together.
Sure thing. So, and once again, yeah, thanks for having us, Jerome. And it's quite hilarious, the way that you guys met. But I'm very glad it happened, and it's been great working with you. But okay, a little bit about Hashlock and maybe some background as well. But for those who don't know, Hashlock is a leading Web3 security firm. So the primary thing that we do is independent audits on smart contracts, infrastructure, layer ones, layer twos, all those sort of, fun pieces of Web3 tech that are very high risk, but very important. We provide independent reviews and audits to validate that they're secure. And then after that, we do things like ongoing monitoring and tooling and support and consulting around Web3 security after those audits is the typical workflow. That's what we do. We're the leading provider, not only in Australia, but also, very known globally at this point for our reputation. And most of our clients, at this point, and this, especially with how the market is, most of our clients sort of come from all over the place just because of how Web3 is. And then, how Jock and I met, quite interesting. We've got a very interesting dynamic. Jock, do you want to explain the dynamic, or do you want me to explain the dynamic, Jock?
Yeah, sure. I'll explain the dynamic. So, both myself and Fletcher were working in different fields, but essentially, I was dating Fletcher's older sister.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yes.
I haven't heard this story, so
really,
I have not. No.
So that's the interesting dynamic. I like to tout myself as the person who initially, introduced Fletcher to the crypto space.
Yeah, nice.
And I guess once we just sort of started talking, and from that got deeper and deeper into the crypto rabbit hole, and the next thing we sort of got together, and we both thought that if we put our heads together, we can really have a decent go at starting a company. And I was already in the security space in the Web 2 side of things, and deeply sort of invested in Web 3 tech. It was just sort of a match made in heaven. Fletcher had all the marketing expertise like and the business acumen, and the rest is history.
I think it's good though, because you've got to really choose a really good co-founder. And I think Jock and I are not only friends, but we're somewhat related now. He's essentially nearly my brother-in-law. I'm the uncle of his newborn, so congrats to him.
So that was going to be my next question. So is that are you still with her? Yes, you are. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're engaged now, and you have the little one Earthside now, so I guess locked in properly. So there's more than one ball and chain on each leg and limb.
Oh gosh, okay. So you guys are the Sopranos of the of the security space or something. The family.
Oh my gosh, that's a crazy way to put it for branding. Look, but it's good though. It's good though, because it means that like Jock and I can like disagree on something, and normal founders who are just friends and business partners, they might have a hissy fit and get upset at each other. Jock and I, we're stuck. We have to come to an agreement at some point. So it's good. It works really well.
That's it.
Nice.
Whenever there is that sort of argument, and there's been arguments, but we always come out on the other side, because at the end of the day we have to.
Yeah.
We're family.
Yeah, for sure. So let me just ask this then. So for those who don't know about how smart contract auditing works, and I was one of those when we got into the work that we did, why don't you just explain a bit about how your audits work, the process, the gamification that you guys do, like the bounties that you have for, the guys who are trying to find, issues with the code. Like, why don't you take us through that process? Because I'm sure, as for me, well, I found it super enlightening and exciting to find out about. I'm sure other people would too.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting space, smart contract auditing, and it all goes back to the primary question that that's prevalent in the industry, which is who actually does the audit, and not just the firm, but also who is the actual people. And so the way that we structure and we believe is best practice is people that have proven in public forums or in the community that they can really find high complexity, day zero Web3 unique vulnerabilities. So what happens in the Web3 industry is due to how decentralized it is and whatnot, there's a lot of online platforms like Code Arena and a bunch of them. There's many where individual auditors who might work in different universities or just high-level security researchers or very advanced professionals, they compete to find vulnerabilities in code, and then they get their name put up as like the number 1 or 2 auditor on that competition, and they get paid a bounty, and everyone knows how good they are. So what Hashlock does is that's where we recruit from. So we don't just get, it's one of our massive point of differences. We don't just get Web 2 cybersecurity guys. We don't just get, some people that have a little bit of experience. We get the leading, the proven leading, mostly academic styled competition level auditors in the world. And that's how we do it. And we can vet them that way. It allows us to recruit at a good pace.
These are guys who, when you recruit, they work just for you, or do they still do those public sort of audits as well?
A mix. So it depends. So it's a really good model. So we have a mixture of full-timers as well as what we call independent researchers who are just doing so many competitions and university academic work and different things that if you wanted to employ them, which you probably couldn't, they're going to be a pretty penny. So,
I understand.
But it's like a GP, GPs, some of the doctors are full-time at their GP, and then some of their GPs are just going around at different places because it's just how specialists work. A lot of specialists in the world are freelancers, and at the end of the day, they get paid so much and they're so skilled that they get to do certain things. And
so, how many people on a standard sort of job that you guys would do? How many of these specialist, auditing experts would be putting their eyes over the code, trying to find a vulnerability? How many on an average one would you say?
Usually, it really depends. On an average, you'd want at least 3 to 4 minimum is the average on like a good audit. An average good audit, and then there's a process too. It's not just like 4 at one go. It's like you sort of break it up and then you re-review and you sort of have a process of like going separate ways, coming back together, collaboration to really make sure that there's not really because sometimes you just have 4 of them, maybe 2 will lead and the other 2 are just sort of. You want to make sure they all independently find stuff, bring ideas together. So we have a whole process around that.
Internally, we call it squads. So we break everyone up into squads. And the cool thing is too, I think the unique value add is because a lot of these people are coming from these bug bounty platforms like Fletcher was saying, Code Arena, Sherlock, MezFi. It's a very dog eat dog, you against the world mentality because you could spend hours, days even, finding a really sort of cool vulnerability, go to hit submit, someone else has beat you to it, so you get nothing for that.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is, we can bring in a mix of people. We need the full-timers there for the structure, but also bringing in, the really top-level, top-ranking security researchers. We can have this sort of mix and be a lot more nimble. And they also bring with them like this wealth of knowledge of all the recent vulnerabilities that have just come out, that day, and putting them in a squad environment where they can actually collaborate and communicate with each other instead of, I'm going to keep all my findings to myself because I don't want to, lose out on getting paid. We can, have a much more awesome approach to finding all the vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I get you. So that's an interesting point that you just made. The vulnerabilities that like just came out that day. So I guess like any hacking and people who are trying to figure out what to do to avoid hackers, people get smarter and smarter. They figure out vulnerabilities, and then when you patch the vulnerabilities, they find new and creative ways. So that's obviously what happens here. Is there that cat and mouse kind of thing where it's like, the criminals or the hackers are, they find something, you're like, damn, I can't believe they found that. Have there been times where, you've patched something and you thought, oh, that's it. And then there's been like this new thing that's happened where you thought, man, how did that happen? And you just had no idea what that was about, or, is that how it happens? I don't know that well, as I said.
Yeah. So the thing with Web3 security, especially, is most of the really damaging critical bugs are unique to that protocol, unique to their business goals. Because what happens is, the project will give us a bunch of documentation around here's what our business or what our application's doing. And only through that can we understand if the code's doing its job or not. Because like the code is the code. We just can track, how it moves, how the functions call each other, cool. The big issues come from when we match that to what the business is trying to do, and we say, oh, hold on, I can exploit these goals here. So a lot of them are specific to that protocol. But yes, sometimes in the industry, time will pass and everyone will figure out, oh, there's been a massive bug in this compiler for ages, and everyone freaks out, or all these sort of things.
Yeah, compilers. Can I stop you there? Because I remember a few months ago, maybe it was last year at some point, there was that big hack. Was it Arbitrum or one sort of liquidity aggregator that had a bug in the compiler? I'm trying to remember what it was, or was it Uniswap? Maybe, I can't remember. And there was, it was like a compiler issue, and then it was
it
like,
SushiSwap?
Yeah, it may have been SushiSwap. I can't remember. And there was like some $10 million hack that happened, and it was nothing to do with their own issues. It was totally in the compiler itself that they had used. Like that stuff's just crazy. And I mean, a lot of people, as a result of these sorts of issues, myself included, sometimes worry about putting your money into crypto, because it just seems like every other day there's a hack. I mean, how do we get from here where it seems like there's just hacks and hacks and hacks to the point where you've got that confidence that things are relatively in hand, so to speak, and that we're not just getting hacked every other day? Like what do we need to get to that point, I guess, is the question.
It's a difficult one. I feel like it's because we're at the sort of cutting edge of tech. Every time someone's doing something innovative, it does sort of open up the door to new hacks and exploits that people haven't even conceived yet, because they're doing something new and innovative. So I think it's a bit of the a consequence of the tech still being in its infancy. At the same time, however, if it is done correctly, the immutable nature of it all does make it, the most secure thing in terms of tech. But it's just, as you innovate, you tend to, do things that people haven't done before. And when you do that, when it comes to the smart contract security, it can cause some issues.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. So I guess another question down that sort of line is, so you guys, I know you started with smart contracts, and were you only EVM? So you were only Ethereum. Do you also look at other chains, or is it just Ethereum based chains?
We definitely started with EVM at the very beginning, and sort of built our name on that at the very beginning. Now, especially because of that model that we outlined, we pretty much audit most Web3 infrastructure that exists. Reason being is because we have access to the best proven talent that's on the market via getting a mixture of sort of having leads in each area full time, and then accessing independent researchers that are sort of out there killing it in their field and have a public name and all that sort of stuff. So the other big ones are, Rust audits on things like Solana. That's a big one. And then the other ones are, like layer one, like infrastructure sort of stuff like that underneath, like the core blockchain consensus and things like that.
What exactly is a Rust audit? I don't know. I mean, maybe
it's like Solidity.
Okay,
Solidity.
so
it's a different language.
Okay, I understand. Sorry, so Rust is the language that's used on Solana. Is that what it is?
It's like one of the primary languages on Solana. Yeah. So not the only, but yeah.
I would still say though, like probably EVM Solidity is still the biggest case of contracts that we do. But we can even go into more obscure like PyTeal languages as well. We have this really sort of broad list of internal security researchers that we use, and we have all their specializations sort of noted down so we know who to put on which job where.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely amazing. So having done both our smart contracts with you guys and the DApp as well, we're something called Hashlocked. Why don't you expound a bit on what being Hashlocked is, and what kind of ongoing sort of controls that you guys have to make sure that things are secure over a period of time, because obviously things don't stop just at the point where you've deployed your smart contracts and your DApp. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into security too, isn't there?
Oh yeah, of course. So the philosophy behind that, it's a really interesting one. Sometimes clients really get annoyed, but it's really important. What the philosophy is there is, yes, you can do an audit with Hashlock, and that will get you like let's imagine we've gotten rid of all the vulnerabilities that we can personally find. We'll rate you as secure, and by the way, that's very disclaimed. We're still never gonna guarantee anything, but we're gonna rate you as secure. But the philosophy is, an audit is a stamp of time. Here's the code that's getting deployed. As the best of our knowledge, you're secure. The Hashlocked philosophy is, okay, we've done that. That's one thing, very important thing. Hashlocked is if you do that, plus take additional steps. You're doing ongoing security. You've got procedures. You've ideally got monitoring. You're making sure the other parts of your tech stack are done. All those sorts of things. Yes, it requires more diligence and more effort, but it means that you're doing more than just an audit to be secure. So you're telling your community, hey, yeah, cool, we've done an audit, but we take security quite seriously. We're doing everything. And then as of that philosophy, at Hashlocked, we push audits all the time, but we really tell our clients, hey, an audit is an audit. You need to do much more than that to really, be secure on a long time frame. Like I said, monitoring's a big one. Ongoing bug bounties are a big one. There's many ways that you can achieve it, but essentially, if you just do an audit and then never look at security again, we don't believe that's Hashlocked.
Okay.
And that's why, although a smart contract audit is one of the best tools to find all vulnerabilities within your project, it is still just one of the tools, and that's why to get to Hashlock, you need to be secure first, and then have those active dynamic solutions, because like we're saying, these vulnerabilities are discovered every day, so we need to have some sort of protections in place to ensure that if something new comes up, then you have a solution there that is checking for that. And because the smart contract audit, I like to think of it as like a save state. So at this point in time, these MD5 contract hashes, from what we can see, if we freeze time right now, everything is secure. But that's not the be all and end all, and that's why you need those active solutions in place as well.
Yeah, totally get it. One thing I wanted to ask you actually is that, when you guys started out, I guess Ethereum was the place where smart contracts were deployed. Hence why you guys are EVM based. In recent times, Bitcoin has started to become something which is, not only used as a store of value, but, with BRC20s, and now, stacks, people are building on Bitcoin and they're looking at, DeFi on Bitcoin. Have you guys actually done any work on the Bitcoin chain? And, where do you see do you guys see, I guess, the same kind of complexity and sophistication as what's currently in, Ethereum smart contracts eventually migrating to Bitcoin? And if so, when and how do you see that happening?
So definitely yes. So we've done a few things. So there's obviously a few different layers. You've got like the Bitcoin core. You've got the ordinal stuff, which is a bit more top level. You've got more. There's a lot of projects are building like Bitcoin EVMs where they sort of try to make it compatible, like their own chain or something like that. And there's a few bridge things and stuff happening, but we've done all of those things at some level. Obviously not to the scale that we've done our core amount of work, but we still have done probably more than most firms. And our philosophy is a bit interesting. The team, we leave it to what, our security researchers are the experts, and they sort of have mixed opinions. I think Ethereum has a big network effect and still the user base and is built for that purpose, whereas it's almost like Bitcoin is sort of the reverse. It wasn't built with that in mind, but now we're seeing potentials of what it could be. So I don't know, Jock, if you'd have more opinions on what, like the long-term nature of it. But yeah, the answer is we've done quite a fair bit.
Yeah, it's difficult, I don't want to have a non-opinion, but I also don't want to upset the massive debate, happening between all of our security researchers.
Upset the debate. Chat. Come on. Why are we talking if we're not going to upset the debate? Come on.
I like both aspects. I do think I agree with what Fletcher was saying, that EVM is what I think of when I think of utility. And although, obviously Bitcoin was around first, I think, sure, go for it. But at the same time, are we just doing things that can be done over on Ethereum, or should we actually do something a little bit different? It's an interesting discussion. I'm considered probably more of a BTC maxi than an ETH one, even though that's just sort of, personal holdings and stuff. I do think, though, that if there's a way to expand utility in one area, maybe we can, focus more on what I guess BTC was originally intended for.
Okay, interesting.
But at the same time, happy to leave it to the security researchers, because I'm sure their opinion is much more valid than mine.
I don't know about that, Jock. I think you've got opinions, and I think they're more valid than other people's. Although, apparently everybody's opinions are worth the same. So maybe it's either one. I'm not sure. So let's talk a bit about the MezFi contracts then, because obviously that's where our work sort of converged. So MezFi is, I guess, you can't really call it a DeFi project, so to speak, because it's not, getting yield on chain. It's not doing it in, it's not liquidity providing. It's not doing any of the things that most DeFi projects do. But it's still being offered in a DeFi environment, and it's different than obviously just a TradFi experience, so to speak. So maybe, I don't know if it's a while back now, but maybe you guys remember some of the things about the contract or about what we were doing that were different from DeFi, and maybe you can explain why RWA projects like ours are different from DeFi. What kind of potential exploits there are in DeFi contracts, because DeFi contracts obviously, or not obviously, but they seem to be ones which are exploited quite a lot. Whereas, with us, there's probably less points of attack being an off-chain kind of platform. So I don't know, maybe you guys can talk a bit to that, what the differences are from a technical perspective and from a smart contract auditor perspective, to maybe give our listeners some kind of an understanding of how they differ, what DeFi really, how it works, what the structure of that is, and the issues, and how MezFi is different than that.
Definitely. No. And the thing about MezFi is MezFi did a really good, and the developers as well. Shout out to them.
By the way, we're having Lockie on from Labras tomorrow for MezFi Meets number 5. So I'll be sure to tell him everything that you say now, good and bad. So
yes, yeah. No, shout out to Labras. They're amazing at what they do, and yeah, shout out to them. They did, and just MezFi in general does a really good job of nailing the sort of transition between Web 2 and Web 3, which is super important because the thing with Web 3 is, especially with, certain types of investors or certain types of assets, there's a friction that can happen that stops adoption. MezFi does a really good job at, obviously there's the on-chain interaction, but then a lot of the real-world asset sort of ownership is has to be processed, some of it off chain, and there has to be some exchange in the middle for the funds to move through. So it does a really good job of that. The risks that we had to look at was when you do have that off chain on chain interaction, there's there's multiple systems happening and there's some communication there technically, and you can have that does increase complexity slightly, and if the integration's not done correctly, you can have issues. So it was important for us to not just audit the smart contracts, but do like proper penetration testing on all of the infrastructure, which we did. And MezFi and yourself invested in the security of the entire system, which is really important. And that's one of the reasons why you can claim that you're fully audited, as long as nothing else gets built that we haven't seen yet. So I think that's the most important thing that a lot of projects struggle with is, okay, what's our value? What's our user base? Is it on-chain? Is it off-chain? Or can it be both? If it is both, how do we make that work? Is it sort of similar to something that's been done for a while, or is it not? And how is it and how isn't it? And then how can we make it work to the investors that you're targeting. So, in general, real world assets are a massive sort of area in tokenization nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we're even seeing things like DPIN and stuff like that come out, it's sort of related.
I haven't heard of DPIN before.
Decentralized physical infrastructure. So it's similar. It's a cousin of real world asset tokenization. But it's a similar sort of thought process, which is let's take what works in the real world and let's allow that to be accessed on chain, and let's take the benefits of that. That's what really happens. So I'm not sure if that's a fair assumption, a fair sort of
I think so.
Judgment, Jerome. But I really was impressed personally with how well it was developed, the ideation and the leadership that came from yourself, and then how it's resulted in something that works really well with the transition between multiple systems, allowing the off-chain and on-chain components. That's what I would say.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
And I think as well, sometimes we don't really get to see this as much. I guess it's more at that sort of development level. But sometimes people try to do too much on-chain. And from a security perspective, that can cause a lot of issues because obviously, it's public ledger is there for everyone to see. And especially when you have certain data sets on-chain, it can definitely leave the door open for a lot of bad actors and malicious contracts to interact with what it is that you're trying to do. So I think, you were really smart into what aspects you use that were on-chain and off-chain to ensure that, I guess, this all happens in a secure fashion. And that's why we were, really impressed looking at the contracts, because we always say you should develop from a security point of view in mind when you're initializing and scoping out what it is that you're trying to do. So that was really impressive from our point of view as well. And another thing I would say is that a lot of people would probably look to Web3 as this sort of, idea of democratizing finance. And I think what MezFi is doing as well is doing that, but from the investment layer.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. I mean, it's kind words, high praise. I appreciate it. And I think the world of you guys as well. And look, I'll go. I mean, let me speak candidly for a second. I mean, like I looked at a number of different smart contract auditing firms along my sort of journey. I looked at you guys. I won't name the other ones. There were some other local, sort of smart contract firms, and there were a couple of overseas, like massive ones that came to me. And in terms of value for money of what you're getting, the team, the dedication that you guys bring to the table, obviously the skill set and everything else. You guys are far and away, the best auditing firm I've found in my journey. So I really appreciate you guys a lot. And I mean, I'd like to understand, like in your view, you've sort of talked about what you guys do and how you do that. Is your process, similar to other auditing firms in the market, or what's your USP, I guess? And is what you talked about what it is, or are there other things that you guys do that sort of don't happen in the market, which is what you guys are bringing to the table?
Thank you, Jerome. That's very nice to hear. But no, so to answer your question, I think if I was to start with the first thing to note about Hashlock is we obviously haven't been around quite as long as some of our massive international competitors. We're slightly more new. But within that time, and you can, and the audience can sort of look up online reviews and things like that, we've gained a really good reputation of avoiding some of the mistakes that those firms have made with and they have massive names, have done a really good job, and then identifying those. And then over the last 2 and a bit years, we've really attacked some of those points. So now, in terms of quality, we've never had a significant loss of funds hack across any of our clients.
That's impressive.
Which is in the hundreds of clients, and never happened. Which most firms have, and it does happen, but it hasn't happened for Hashlock. The other thing is a lot of firms won't tell you who, and I really stress this a lot, who actually is. If any of our clients at any time says who did the audit or who is doing the audit, we'll tell them the individuals and give them their online profiles and everything like that. Yeah. Obviously, Hashlock is a Australian-based firm. Our team and our clients are sort of decentralized everywhere, but the core group is Australian. So, and we're a bit newer. So our prices are, yes, we're expensive. We're not a really cheap firm, but for the really good ones, I would say we are pretty good on pricing in comparison. And there's some of the main things. So quality for price, like you said, but also transparency. And then the other one's just, especially now, what we've really been trying to do is when we start an audit, over the last few months, we've really stressed like making a group chat with the client, put the auditors in there, talk as we're doing it. Because a lot of firms just send the report later, just like you. We've really, one of the recent things is, making it so that you constantly are talking to the auditors and seeing what's happening and discussing things and things like that. Jock, would you second any of those points, or would there anything I miss?
No, I think you said it excellently. But yeah, definitely the things where other larger, more potentially established firms have failed, we tried to have that as our core focus of this is not what we want to do. So there's other firms that scale too fast with like the ups of the market, and then quality has diminished in this industry where essentially your reputation is your badge of honor. We don't ever want to have a miss resulting in loss of funds, and luckily so far we haven't. So we although we're not saying that that's never going to happen, with a lot of in this industry, it's sort of the more jobs that happen, it might happen in the future. Who knows? But we're going to do everything in our power to make sure it doesn't. And we believe that those processes that we put in place to stop that being an eventuality is something that a lot of firms didn't want to do because that is a costly thing to implement. So as well, we do a lot of things in terms of our security researchers. We allow them to have their own personal brand. Like Fletcher was saying, if you want to know who did the audit, we can point you to the squad and the individuals within that squad, and you can see what it is that they do. And that's something that's been attractive for security researchers looking to be a part of Hashlock, and that's how we're, I guess, able to have these top 5 security researchers on these bug bounties come and work for us, even though they're absolutely making bank doing bug bounties. I think they enjoy the collaborative aspect of what we can offer, and a lot of security researchers like to grow their knowledge and do research elsewhere. And I think that allows them to do that, and we foster that environment for them. So I think where other firms tend to falter, we make sure that we have that sort of bolstered and reinforced so that everyone has a good experience, and make sure that we tell you guys about it all the way in terms of comms and stuff. Keep everyone happy.
Yeah, no, I've certainly found that the communication lines are always open, which is really appreciated. And apart from that, you guys are just great guys. So it's always good to you enjoy the company, the people you work with. So I really appreciate you guys a lot. We've had a couple of good sort of nights along the way, whether it was at DeFi up in Sydney, or whether it was, like I said, that first time. Speaking of good nights, I mean, Jock, I know you were just in Dubai for Token. How was that? And what did you? Was it just yourself, or Fletch? Did you happen to go as well?
Yeah, I went as well with Jock, but I reckon Jock would have a more fun telling of the of how it went. No, Jock, what do you think about Dubai?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I should say we. I'm not going to take sole responsibility for the reputation that maybe Hashlock has of throwing a good party, and maybe not knowing when to call the parties over, just sort of keep going until the morning. But I guess initially with Dubai, we were looking at Smart Traveler on the Gov websites, and it's like rated as a red city. You make sure extra special, careful behavior, be careful where you drink, all this stuff. And so I didn't really list it as a party city. I thought it would be a lot stricter, and I think Fletcher did as well. So I was ready to be on my best behavior, and so was Fletcher.
And that didn't happen.
Line if I wasn't. Pretty much, yeah. I'd probably say it's like the Las Vegas of Middle East.
There you go.
So it was definitely really cool. Probably not some place that I would spend all of my time. Otherwise, I might not get anything else done. But definitely really fun. Lots of cool, amazing parties, and definitely will be going back for sure.
Amazing. Yeah. No, I love Dubai. I think it's a great city. I didn't go, unfortunately, to Token. With the launch of MezFi coming up, we've got lots of work to do here. And I'm planning to go to Singapore. So if you guys are going to be in Singapore for Token, I'll be there for sure.
Yeah, we'll be there.
We'll be there.
Okay, nice. And Singapore FinTech Festival as well, I'm planning to be there for. So that should be good. Were you guys at East Sydney over the weekend, by the way? Were you at Pragma and East Sydney? Or did you guys not make it in?
I was sort of in and out because, my 2-month-old son was feeling pretty crook. I accidentally brought home a random virus from Dubai, and unfortunately he picked it up as well. So even though I sent him and his mum over to my parents to sort of isolate, and I stayed here in the apartment, but still he caught it. So I was sort of in and out. I think I managed 2 events, but only like partial bits of the day.
Okay. And
but Fletcher was...
Yeah. I was sort of in and out. I wasn't able to do the whole thing, but tried to make some of the stuff. And Upside and Helix Collective and a few other parties threw a really good afternet, like a side event, which was really good that we went to at Fortress, which is like a really cool gaming bar thing, and they use it as an event, but it was really cool.
Yeah, I think we have a Fortress in Melbourne as well. It's like a gaming kind of. It's like the e-gaming arena kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. We had our muck-up day there because a little bit of insider information. So whenever we, throw a bit of a muck-up day, or whenever there's time where, the team needs to have a break, which is, few and far, but a lot of the security researchers will have like an internal games day. So it's funny when we choose what to do for a muck-up day, all of the internal team decides that they want to go to Fortress in Sydney and essentially have an in-person video games day.
Nice.
Just like we do online.
Look, I guess with smart contract auditors, with devs, I think you can probably safely say that 99% of them will be gamers. So that makes a lot of sense.
Pretty much.
Definitely.
Nice one. All right, guys. Well, look, I think it's we've got to wrap it up in a bit. It's been an absolute pleasure having you guys on. Just as a last sort of more serious question, because we've sort of gotten into the party aspect of what it is to be in Web3, but obviously we're trying to change the world, one smart contract at a time around here. Look, I've said a couple of times, and I'm still of the view that friction in financial services has its role, and all AML, CTF sort of practitioners will say that, because when you remove friction entirely, you remove those checks and balances that stop where you may have found something that was going to go wrong, and you don't allow yourself to catch those kinds of things, and things can go extremely badly wrong. So I guess being in the smart contract auditing space, you guys are probably in a really good position to give a view of, how could we get to the point where we could totally remove, and will we ever get to the point where we can totally remove friction from that crypto or blockchain financial services aspect in a safe way, where that friction, which currently is very necessary to make sure that those bad actors don't win, can be removed in a safe kind of way to have that frictionless, financial experience that we're all sort of aiming for. And that's the nirvana of what we're doing, obviously. So, how do you think we can get there? Do you think we can get there? And, how do you think we can get to that point if we can?
I think to an extent, right? That's always been one of the promises of Web3. But every time that a client comes to us and their first claim is like, we're the most efficient thing to date, we, completely, frictionless, the high speed, all these sort of things, they're making sacrifices somewhere. So I think to an extent, from a tech perspective, from an economic design perspective, from a, business perspective, you do need those checks and balances, because especially from our perspective, because we're a bit more conservative, because we're not just innovators, we're security guys. So we're like, whoa, slow down. Like, let's just put these checks here. Sure. So we think a little bit in that way. However, that's more of being a little bit pessimistic. I do think in the longer term, Web3 paired with a lot of other technologies, whilst there's always going to need to be some level of friction, as you said, the idea is that there's a lot less middlemen. You can have technology that makes things a lot more sure that certain things are going to be implemented in procedures and operations, and things can be drastically sped up and made more simple. With complex technology, things can become more simple. And yeah, I do think it's possible. I just think I think from our angle, we always just sit in the corner, just like yelling security at the same time, while all the innovators are like, let's go. But that's probably our perspective. But no, I definitely do agree.
Yeah, like with what Fletcher was saying, I think to get to that stage where it is completely frictionless, there will need to be sacrifices. Sacrifices on one side would just be further innovation in the tech. So it's like, what can people build? So I'd put that on the builders. Like, how can you get that tech to that space where it is frictionless? But the caveat of that is that I think the sacrifices will have to be made on the privacy and the anonymity side of things, where, if you want frictionless, well, what are the things that cause friction?
So,
and what does it mean for them to be removed?
So we've talked a bit about on this podcast, as well as privately with Mitch Travers the other day. We talked about digital identity. So is that one of the things that if we were to be happy to have our digital identities or our identities sort of represented on chain, there, accessible? Is that one of the kinds of things that would potentially remove that friction that we're talking about?
Definitely. I think so. The hardest sell for that is the migration of, I guess, traditional Web 2 companies owning a lot of that information, a lot of that data, and essentially the self-ownership migration that needs to happen to get that. Because at the moment, the friction is caused by the checks and balances of that data existing not on your person.
Yeah,
it needs to be checked by a third party and moved from place to place, copied in 5 different areas. So yeah, but with that, I guess self custody of your data and your identity, which I'm all for. There also comes risk of security aspect of that too. Because if you have complete self-custody over all that information, and it's really crucial, important information, you need to make sure that the tech can ensure as well that people don't lose that.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I mean, I guess it's the same thing. I mean, I do have some cold store, and I've used it in the past. I do find myself just, buying on exchanges and keeping it there in a similar kind of fashion. Are people, just very lazy, and they don't necessarily want to take the steps to properly self-custody, keep their keys, if it is keys that they will have in the future, to secure their digital identities safe and, out of the hands of hackers. But at the same time, there are centralized bodies, I won't name them because I don't want to get sued, who have been the result of identity and digital identification and information hacks. So, it's a bit of a cat and mouse situation, isn't it? That's that we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think maybe the option is to a bit like with the Bitcoin ETF. The option is there that a lot of people ask me, oh, why would people want that? Why would people, invest in that? And I think a lot of people see it as if, I have someone else investing for me, then I have a sort of level of security that they're going to look after it for me on my behalf. And then, obviously people probably more like myself, like I don't really understand that from an ownership perspective. So I think, you have to sort of part ways. Are people in the camp of would they rather trust someone else to look after it for them, or would they rather trust themselves? And then those two sort of camps of people, how can we sort of integrate it into a way that is frictionless when people want things that are different for each other?
Interesting. All right. Well, I think that we'll resolve that by saying horses for courses, and the future may have something for everyone.
Yes.
That's it.
Jock and Fletcher, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time. Really, always such a pleasure to have you guys. Having a chat with you guys, and I hope to have you on the podcast again. And have a wonderful day, and we'll speak to you very soon in the future, I'm sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us. It was a great chat.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jerome. Awesome chat.
Thanks so much, guys. All right, have a great day. We'll catch you soon.
Cheers.
Awesome. Peace.
Cheers. Thanks for watching. If you want to find out more about MezFi, go to www.mezfi.com. Follow us on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. You can see our shorts there, and look forward to the next conversation, and see you then.